It is 6:32 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting of the Community Development Committee to order. While this meeting is being held in person, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in the meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comments verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand, but stay seated and we will call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. Please contact the administration office at 913-676-8350 with any questions or concerns. Ms. Folks, please call the roll call.
Boltinghouse.
Here.
Loudon. Here. Byard. Here. Kring. Here. Chociej.
Here.
Our first item of business tonight is public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment now on an item not on our agenda tonight? Okay, we have one item coming forward from the Planning Commission's October 23rd meeting, the preliminary development plan for Phase 2 of Mohawk Park. Mr. Scott, will you please share the information about this item?
Madam Chair. Planning Commission met the end of October. They had one item on their agenda, and that was the preliminary development plan for Mohawk Phase 2. Located 6649 Lamar Avenue. Planning Commission case 2221. Phase 1 was done last year. Ceremony so and sooner. We already did. Yeah, we did it. So hold on. We're now working on Phase 2, and so those plans were presented to the Planning Commission. And Phase 2 really just entails removing that kind of eyebrow parking lot on Borden, adding parallel parking along Borden, and then removing an existing playground, and adding a new playground, kind of expanded play feature area, as well as a pickleball court / half basketball court, and then extending the trail, kind of realigning the trail throughout the park, making more linear, and the corresponding topography and park land. So we did have some residents that came to the public hearing to speak. All the favorable improves that they was one resident that was 67th Street across the park. Who's primarily concerned about the noise that is generated by the pickleball. Guidance Mark and New York Times, as well as some sound of pickleball. It was noted that pickleball court on the center of the park is about 200 feet or more from the surrounding residential property. We also talked about potential for landscaping. The Planning Commission accepted all of the staff conditions, as well as amending to add conditions for consideration of landscaping around the pickleball court to kind of help reduce the once for that further into there was some conversation about a speed limit. I steered away from that really because we need to make the process traffic control device in the neighborhood. And the planning commission really kind of a multi-pronged approach. You also start with Woodson first and put that sign, so we see it. Exploring options for some type of speed on the violence and speed on
Of course, we want to get the input from, that would help, the input from the neighbors and kind of a buy-off from them of any kind of improvements we make along that process. That's really kind of, like I say, multi-phase process. It's really best done after park improvements are completed.
Yes, and assuming that there is an issue to be evaluated once
Right,
the
yeah.
improvements are completed.
Right. So that was it. It was approved 7-0. We had 2 commissioners that were absent. So. And this will be on your agenda for the regular meeting in November.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
I have a question. Remind me, what time does Mohawk Park close? In the evening?
10.
Is it 10?
Yeah.
So the noise concern could be if it was like after 8 o'clock or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, really anytime during the day, but yeah.
Thank you.
Our first action item this evening is the acceptance of the minutes, the meeting minutes from Robin Folks.
Thank you. Draft minutes of the October 4th Community Development Committee meeting are included for review and acceptance in your packet tonight.
Recommend acceptance on consent.
All right.
I know.
Guess I'm as chair. I better do it.
Next, we will consider a proposal for an extension of on-call engineering contracts from Laura Smith.
Yes, thank you. I think we've talked about this, that last year we did a 12-month extension to our on-call engineering contract just because of sort of all of the projects that were in play. This year, as we found ourselves in transition with a public works director, we have talked about extending or recommending an additional 12-month extension just because the process, the RFQ process, the interview process is very labor intensive for those of you who've had the opportunity to serve on that selection committee. So we would recommend a second amendment to our master services agreement with GBA and Olson, both of whom have continue to really exceptional work for the city for an additional 12 months. And then as we move forward with a new public works director, we will look at going through that RFQ process in the fall of 2024.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Can I get a recommendation?
I so moved.
So we have
Consent,
Consent. Right.
please.
Our next action item tonight will be for consideration of flooring replacement at the Pell Community Center from Penn Alimony.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the north kitchen floor at the Powell Community Center is original to the 2004 expansion and has undergone a series of damage through ice machine, general wear and tear over the years. And then we just recently polished the concrete on the adjoining rooms. So that threshold on the doorway is now a tripping hazard. And so as part of the flooring just overhaul that we had planned in 2024, the fact that this little section is such a tripping hazard at this point, we're bringing this forward to your consideration this evening. So we reached out to 4 separate epoxy flooring installers, 3 of whom bid on this project. The lowest and most responsive bid was from Apex Concrete Coatings, who has extensive experience installing epoxy flooring, and they most recently completed the locker room installation in our men's and women's locker rooms at the community center, which has endured all the harsh chemicals and the wear and tear, the impacts that our patrons bring upon it. And we've been very pleased over the last year. So we've realized a few cost savings through various projects this year. One of which was the polished concrete installation, which came in $7,868 under budgeted estimates. And then the south kitchen flooring, which we brought forward last month, which came in $4,950 under budgeted estimates. So staff is proposing utilizing this cost savings to push forward these flooring improvements in the tail end of 2023, and recommends awarding the contract to Apex Concrete Coatings for the north kitchen and staff hallway tile removal and epoxy flooring resurfacing for a total not to exceed $9,432. And we anticipate that this installation will occur the last 2 weeks of December, where we notice significant attendance level dips. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Question, Ben. So considering the space needs and kind of the long-term plan for the community center, we're deciding that we want to maintain this space as a kitchen still, and that's appropriate for going forward.
Yes, we see a lot of kitchen in tandem rentals with that C, D, and E in particular. So we anticipate keeping that space a kitchen for the foreseeable future.
Any other questions?
Recommend acceptance.
Council, yeah.
All right. Our final action item tonight is consideration of a contract for improvements at Waterwork Park, also from Penn.
Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. Another park improvement coming on deck. And this one is Waterworks Park. It's 6.5 acres just off of 53rd Street and a little bit south of Rushton Elementary. It's owned by Water One, and then we have contracted with them to perform maintenance through a joint use agreement. This joint use agreement was revised in January of 2022, and we've been in good standing with that agreement since its inception in 1982. The last major improvement from this site was the installation of playground amenities in 1999. So this park in particular has needed a lot of love, and we're happy to bring forward this consideration. So we contracted with Confluence in 2019 to begin master planning improvements for all of our major parks. Waterworks Park came out of that process as one of the quickest conceptual design to like final approval with all of the stakeholders. It came together pretty quickly. Parks and Recreation Tree Commission, as well as the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, consider this a priority improvement. And estimates back in 2020 put this as at about $1.5 million conceptual design improvement cost. So based on the size of the property, its proximity to Rushton Elementary, and all of the various stakeholders and the priority level on each of the documents we created, City Council agreed to align this with the construction of Rushton Elementary as soon as possible. So that's why we're bringing it forward to you today. The hope is that we will break ground here in either December, January, and then conclude construction at the same time that Rushton Elementary opens in August of 2024. So the project improvements include shelter, restrooms that would obviously support and enhance our current and any additional programming, 10-foot wide concrete trails that connect to Rushton Elementary, and then providing alternative purposeful routes along the park. Water fountains, solar lighting along that main route, and then All Abilities Playground with poured-in-place rubber, surfacing, shade sails, trash and recycling receptacles, benches, bikes, native plantings, and anything else you can imagine that make this place beautiful. So we're excited to deliver all of that. We are proposing demolishing the existing parking lot and pushing that in a U shape off of the street. It creates additional parking and also allows for drop-off pickup and a little bit safer opportunity for kids to stay away from that street. Preliminary development plan was approved by the Planning Commission in June of this year, and then City Council was brought forward in July of this year. So some of this is review for you, but I love to review the exciting improvements that are on deck. So we had a pre-bid meeting. October 12th, 9 different construction firms showed up and asked a myriad of questions. And so through those questions and some follow-up emails, we actually had 3 different addendums. And ultimately, 4 contractors bid on October 19th. Then we sat down as a staff with Stantec, reviewed each of those bids to make sure that they were complete and met all of our standards and what we had asked of them. And I think it's important to recall from that process that we excluded the All Abilities Playground, as well as the picnic tables, benches, and bike racks, so that we could save $40,000. Because we discussed with Stantec, if that were included in the bid, they'd probably have some kind of markup. There'd be a middleman liaison type of arrangement. And so this allows us to save an additional $40,000. So if you consider those pieces, along with the lowest and most responsive bid by Centric, we're looking at total waterworks improvements coming in just under 1.6 million, which 3 years later, all the construction cost increases, we feel is a pretty significant win for us. Because we had, early projections, at least from Stantec, had it closer to 2 million. We were able to get that down a lot closer to our 1.5. So based on that review, staff is recommending approval of a contract with Centric Construction Group for waterworks park improvements in an amount not to exceed $1.158637 million and 25 cents, or $1,158,637.25. And Stantec is currently doing a final review of bid documents and working to prepare a contract for execution later this month. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good. All right. Well, what's your recommendation?
I recommend non-consent just to highlight the scope of this work.
You want to talk about this for sure.
Yeah,
That and it's 7 figures, so.
Yeah.
7 figures, pretty significant.
But under budget, so
Yeah, it's
it's
great.
exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. That's
Thanks.
really cool.
Thanks, Ben.
We have one discussion item this evening, a review of the city's snow plan from Brent Borton.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's the season we all like to talk about. So this is our 2023 and 2024 snow plan. We haven't had any changes to the snow plan in probably the last couple of years, except for adding in some sidewalks. Feel we do a pretty good job at it with the crews we got. We split our crews during the snow season to 12-hour shifts, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. They rotate those shifts every month, so not one crew stuck on nights. Streets are our first priority, so once we start pushing snow, everybody's also on call, 2-hour call window, but we know when the snow's coming, so usually have people at the shop waiting or pre-treating the roads, depending on the situation. Anywhere from 500 to 800 pounds per lane mile of salt, depending on the conditions. If it's a heavy snow, and all we're doing is pushing, we'll hold off on salt until we start seeing some of the pavement, so we know that salt's working, so we're just not laying it down and pushing it back in people's yards or in the stormwater system. We've got trucks for all our employees, 2 backup trucks, and then we also have a truck parks users for the community center and miscellaneous parking lots throughout the city. Roads are our first priority. We basically break it up from the main thoroughfares like Johnson Drive, Fox Ridge, Row, Knoll, streets like that. We dedicate 2 big trucks to the main thoroughfares, and then Johnson Drive is basically how we break the city north and south side. So we have trucks on both sides with routes 1, 2, and 3. So it's the hills, the heavy thoroughfares that get hit first, and then they work their way into the residential areas. If we're full staffed, there's usually an extra guy on one crew. We'll keep them on the north side since that's the toughest residential area to push. So we try to get everybody the same treatment as soon as possible. Johnson Drive parking spots. We always do those at night. I went from Lamar to Knoll. During the day, we just don't have the ability to get in there with the amount of cars that are parked there. So that's a night operation. If we get more than a foot, we talk about moving snow to some of our open lots and stockpiling it if it starts to become a traffic hazard for sight distance issues. Sidewalks and trails, facility parking lots, that kind of comes after the roads besides City Hall and the Community Center, or where we have any kind of ADA concerns, we usually jump on those pretty quick. Be happy to answer any questions you might have about the snow plan, but feel we do a pretty good job and usually have everything knocked out within 12 hours to 24, depending on how bad it is.
Any comments or questions?
And how excited are you about some of your new equipment?
Oh, very excited. Very excited. We are actually looking into brine, at least trying it out. True North across the highway sells it by the gallon. So we've been waiting on our next big truck for 2 years just with COVID and supply chain issues. So as soon as we actually know that truck's coming to us, we're going to discuss on getting that thing set up for brine and giving that a shot and see if it works better for the city, because the truck's not the expensive outfitting cost. It's being able to make that stuff on site and getting the equipment for that. So we're definitely gonna test run that. The snow aerator we got last year for the sidewalks. The guys love it. And we're not doing damage to sod in people's yards, so they don't have to go back and restore it, which they're a fan of as well. And then the new UTV we got for trails and sidewalks, along with the old Gator going to parks to help out at the community center, is a vast upgrade from what we used to have. It's got power steering, heat, and just more user friendly for the guys. So they're very appreciative of all the nice and new equipment we have, and helps us maintain the level of service everybody requires of us.
Brent, are we fully staffed right now in Public Works, or how many?
We
are
will
down?
be in like a week and a half if the new guy comes on board. He's working through the onboarding process right now, so going into snow season full staff is definitely a tremendous help on making sure everybody gets the level of service they need.
Thank you.
I have to say you all make it so I could go to work every time. So thank you.
Just let me know that wants to change, and we'll just slow it down a little bit. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Smith, are there any department updates for the Community Development Committee?
Yes, I believe, Mr. Scott, you want to share some information, and then Penn, do you, and Brent, I think both have some. Do you have anything? Okay.
So our second Planning Sustainable Places grant is well underway. That's the citywide bike ped connection study. We had interviewed a couple of firms and we ended up selecting RDG out of Omaha. They do quite a bit of work throughout the Midwest. And they have a principal on the firm as well as a younger associate who are bicyclist enthusiasts and do these studies all over the Midwest. So they're very familiar with the process and bicycle and walkability design for communities. In fact, they've done a couple of studies here in the Kansas City area, one in Marion and one in Leawood. So it was kind of the primary driver for why we selected them. They've been in the community, actually bicycling around and walking around, kind of surveying streets and taking note of such things as directness to destinations and integrity of the network and the comfort and safety, kind of the overall experience and equity. So we're kind of doing that overall kind of inventory and evaluation right now. We had a open house kickoff meeting on the 9th, and it was actually very well attended. Councilmember Davis was there, and we got a lot of good input. They had a number of photographs, boards of photographs that kind of showed different streets in the community and Shawnee Mission Parkway and Johnson Drive. And people were asked to take dots to kind of, what do you like? What don't you like? And what are your concerns? And leave little sticky notes. So they had lots of good notes at the end of the night that they were able to compile. And then we had a kind of a meeting with our steering committee this past Monday evening. And they got a lot of insight. Councilmember Chociej is part of that group. A couple of planning commission members and some representatives from the community, a couple of bicycle enthusiasts, and then a representative from Mission Possible. That's a constituency we always want to try to include in those types of studies. So They will be back in town at the end of November to do a design charrette. So they're going to be parked over at the community center for a couple days. Just kind of drawing on maps and coming up with ideas, and the steering committee will meet with them one night. I believe we have kind of open house charrette design the second night. So there'll be more details about that coming out. In the meantime, they've created a website that you can find through the city's webpage. And there's an interactive map as part of that website, much like we did with the comp plan, where one can kind of go in and drop pins and make comments, and other people can like or dislike or add something to the comment made. So that's another tool for kind of collecting data and information. And they're really kind of hoping that people will say, well, there's a trip hazard here, or there's a barrier there, or it's difficult to get from south of Shawnee Mission Parkway, you go across Shawnee Mission Parkway to the north side. So those kind of comments will help them in evaluating options and looking for opportunities for improvement. So we're well underway. This study will kind of carry through the holidays. We'll have a few more kind of community engagement type events in January. They'll kind of wrap up in February. So.
Okay, it's been a while since we met and talked about Halloween, but Spooky Walk for us, new record, 1,350 participants. And the last time this happened was 2 years ago, and many thought that it was just a flash in the pan because we couldn't duplicate it last year. But that is now our highest attended event, which is always wonderful to see an event grow and thrive. And thank you all to those of you that helped and volunteered. We appreciate it. And I know the citizens and the region just love it to death. So it's been great. Broadmoor Park, concrete is all poured. It's all 10 feet wide and so beautiful and firm. That's great. So bust out your bikes and start walking or riding along it. We're about 90% done. We still have some grading and landscape. We have to put sod out. And obviously, if you know anything about sod, this isn't the ideal temperature to lay it. So we're debating on whether we can still get it in this season. So I hope we can, but we're not going to force it. We have the first round of interviews for the Powell Community Center business manager coming up next week. So that was 364 applicants deep. And yeah, so we whittled it down to, this is interview group of 13. And so we're going to do most of those by Zoom and probably whittle that down to the top 2 or 3. So I'm excited to be moving forward on that. In terms of upcoming events, Thanks for Seniors is coming up a little later this month. It's Thursday, November 16th at 11:30. And I appreciate those of you who've committed to being there. And the mayor who's actually going to be speaking. So thank you. We've got holiday family adoption coming up a little later this month too, on the Monday, November 20th at the Powell Community Center. So set aside some time to help out our families in need. What's that? Pearl Harbor Remembrance is coming up in December. That'll be December 7th at 11:53. We've got we start the program at 11:30 where we review some videos of some past survivors. So I'd love to invite you to that as well. Thanks.
But we got a lot going on in town right now. So trying to button up all the projects. The street program is pretty close to being done. It's basically down to restoration and some aesthetics. So they're hopefully starting to lay sod over on Riggs and then moving through all 4 projects either Thursday or Friday, the latest starting Monday. Just everything's so wet from that week of rain, just trying to not make it worse when they start laying it. So they should be completed probably to 98%, I'd say, in the next couple of weeks. Fox Ridge, we're chugging along on that one. sidewalk and integrated sidewalk installation is probably going to continue for the next week and a half. Just the integrated sidewalk retaining walls, it's just time consuming with setting the forms and decorative aspects of it. But if you have a chance to drive down it, it's sidewalks almost all the way in where you could walk on it. They just got to do the walls, but it's a vast improvement through that area for sure. They're going to start setting the piers for the traffic signal, hopefully later this week or the first of next week. Our traffic signal will go in first, and then Johnson County Wastewater is also signalizing the bridge over 35. That has been pushed to probably January or February just on getting the equipment. So, but Capital is going to do our signal. They're going to set the piers for the highway after ours is complete, and then it's just basically waiting on equipment to get that stuff up and running. So I would say February probably that they'll start putting that stuff in the air, and you'll start seeing some changes down there over the I-35 bridge. Our Beverly Stormwater project right next to the community center, that's been approved. It's moving along, just waiting on precast structure. So hopefully getting that started in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Martway, Outlook and Martway, Water One is started. They're going to slip line that main that they had problems with that blew up about 2 or 3 times. So there'll be some traffic impacts. Martway will be closed for a couple days with detour signs around that. I told them they have to stay out of Johnson Drive, so they promised they wouldn't cut into that new pavement. So hopefully they'll stick to that. That should take about 2 weeks, and then they're going to overlay Outlook with all that damage they've done with the main breaks and all that stuff. So they're on the hook for getting that road put back right. So it won't be a big patch job. So it was good they worked with us on that. The 55th from Lamar to Knoll is our 2024 street project. Start moving utilities there probably in the next month, I would say. Evergy's moving some poles and relocating some stuff to make that sidewalk right and get poles in better spots where they're not in middle of people's driveways and stuff like that. Gas and Water's doing a full relocation, so all that work's gonna take place before we get in there in the spring and get that road fixed up. We've got our stormwater nuisance projects. We're moving forward with 3 of those. Should have plans and something we can get out to bid in probably the next 2 to 3 weeks. Biggest thing you can probably see is we've got all the trees trimmed on Johnson Drive, except one because we had some cars that didn't move, but we'll get that figured out. But take a look. It looks real good. It looks like it's a vast improvement. Our guys are out there buttoning up the landscaping to winter it. And then Trek is finishing up our stormwater inventory. If you haven't seen around town, camera and lines, inspecting structures. That project should be wrapped up late December or the 1st of January. Be happy to answer any questions about any of the projects or anything.
I just have a general question. Is there any appetite from Evergy to start burying lines when we're doing big projects like this?
There's not, I mean.
Not at their cost. They're happy to do it if we pay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's. When it's built out like it is, the costs are very heavy to get that stuff underground because all the feeds are overhead to the houses, and it's very costly working around our infrastructure and everybody else's infrastructure as well.
Okay.
So
I just wonder if the time is ever going to come when that seems like a really good idea.
I've read that in infill, it can be more trouble than it's worth to get all those vaults in there and try to maintain it too. It's just like, tree roots, and it's a constant battle. I think it's hard for them to maintain.
yes,
So
there actually is a duck bank running down 55th Street next year's project, and we've had to redesign 70% of the storm to avoid that duck bank because moving that duck bank is, it could delay the project a year trying to get that duck bank moved to where it would work for us. So I don't see it in the future, but we'll definitely keep our ears to the ground. Thank you.
Hello, I just wanted to share an update on the energy audit and winterization program. So as you know, it was a new program for us this year, pilot program, thanks to your funding, and we aimed to do 15 energy audits. We actually ended up with 16 through a fluke and a generosity of one of our contractors. So we chose, as you've heard, homes that represented a whole variety of housing type. So ranch, split level, townhome, and then also a variety of year, so the decade that the house was constructed, in the hopes that we could use these initial 15 as demonstration projects in a way, so that someone could look at the list of homes we have and identify something that looked similar to their home and take lessons from the energy audit that we did. So the participants, the contractors, first of all, I will say were excellent to work with, and they moved really quickly through our list. We're very courteous. And so I wanted to have a debrief session. So we pulled everyone who could attend together for a virtual meeting last week. And the contractors attended and listened just to everyone sharing their experience. They just took a couple minutes and explained kind of how the process went for them, any surprises that they had, what they are considering working on, and then just kind of their general sense of the program. And it was just overwhelmingly positive, lots of surprises, lots of room for improvement. They wanted to share really, which I thought was helpful. Part of this effort is to really encourage other people to do audits on their own homes, obviously. And everyone thought that it was much less invasive of a process than they were expecting, which I thought was an important detail. And then just very helpful in terms of having a whole menu of options that also share, in some cases, return on investment, time for pay down, and rebate information. And in January, Kansas will have additional rebates for this type of work that we don't have at this point on this side of the state line. So we were really interested in engaging and potentially scaling up a lot of these efforts. I have some photos and I have the reports from everyone that participated, and working on a web page that shares, a link to this video for what it's worth. It was very casual. It was a sharing session, but we promised that we'd record it. So we have that, but also some takeaways and some just general guidance. We still have the majority of funds from the grant to spend on implementation. So I just need to work with each of the participants to figure out contractors' work and to see if there's a way to coordinate so that we could hire one contractor and help, a very common issue with all of the homes to try to get that done. And then, I think what we're trying to build is a sense of camaraderie between the participants so that we can track them over time as well. We would love to show, change in energy bills, change in comfort level in the home, that kind of thing, to have some documentation. But I think we're getting close to having some share out information to the public, even though we haven't yet done any actual work to improve, but we have a lot of momentum. So I think we're in good shape. Thanks.
I think that's it for
Okay.
community development. Thank you.
Yes.
I was just gonna say a quick comment. There was a profile in the Shawnee Mission Post today about Emily. That's very nice. You should all read it. We will.
All right. It is now 7:10 PM, and with no further discussion, that concludes the meeting of the Community Development Committee. Again, this video will be made public on our website at missionks.org. Thank you.
Okay, it is now 7:10 PM, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee to order. While this meeting is being held in person, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in the meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember, your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we will call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also, please be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. Please contact the administration offices at 913-676-8350 with any questions or concerns. Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Boltinghouse,
Here.
Loudon,
Here.
Byard,
Here.
Green,
Here.
Chociej.
Here.
All right, our first item of business is public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment now? Okay, seeing none. We have no public presentations this evening, therefore we will now proceed with our regular agenda. Our first action item this evening is the acceptance of the meeting minutes from Robin Folks.
Thank you. Draft minutes of the October 4th Finance and Administration Committee meeting are included for review and acceptance in your packet tonight.
Recommendation.
Recommend acceptance on consent.
Great, thank you. Our second action item is consideration of a contract for legislative advocacy services with Little Government Relations from Laura Smith.
Yes, thank you. So I think we're all aware that since 2020, we have contracted with LGR, Little Government Relations LLC, for government affairs and advocacy services. Throughout the course of the legislative session, they provide weekly updates. They assist with crafting any testimony and just really support the overall education and information sharing with both staff and council about relevant legislative issues and the legislative climate. And we feel like this relationship has really added value. This council has had more interest in some of the legislative activity than sometimes in years past. And it really helps to have Stuart Little, who is here this evening. Thank you, Stuart, and Mallory Lutz available to help kind of support and inform us in a very timely fashion. So we are recommending renewal of an agreement with LGR in an annual amount not to exceed $12,500 for government affairs and advocacy services. This is slight increase over the previous year's contract. They've provided these services for $10,000 a year since 2020. And we're seeking this increase of $2,500 on the annual contract for 2024. So I'm happy to answer questions, and I'm sure that Stuart would be as well.
Okay, any questions or comments from the council? Yep, Trent.
I think this is really valuable service, and I appreciate the work that LGR has done for us in the past, and hope that we can continue to participate in this service.
Okay, anybody else? Otherwise, I will take a recommendation.
Mary, I had just a quick question.
Sorry, yes, sorry.
Laura, are we going to be talking more about the legislative program coming soon too?
Yes, so I have talked with Stuart Mallory, and I don't know if you know yet who on the 29th. They're working that out, but on the 29th of November, we anticipate having a work session where we'll review kind of a draft, and then it will come be on your December committee agenda and council agenda for inclusion. November kind of snuck up on us this year. As you heard in the last meeting, we've had a few things going on.
Okay, recommendation?
Recommend acceptance, consent.
Okay, yeah, I agree. All right, thank you. All right, where am I? Our next action item tonight is for consideration of 2024 employee benefit renewals from Emily Randolph.
Yes, thank you. As you know, we wait anxiously every late summer / early fall for our renewal rates for medical and health insurance for our staff. We work closely with locked-in broker benefits group throughout the year, anticipating, trying to prepare, and anticipating and kind of reading tea leaves until we can kind of finally get the numbers. Happily, this year, we were offered a deal to move to the small group segment 1 year earlier than would be required of us in order to hold rates flat for another year. So that was a huge relief. As you know, we've had various swings in the past, double digits, 19% increases, and we just never know. And so we've been fortunate this year. That changes a little bit of our impact to staff, but minimally. We're switching to the Blue Cross premium formulary that would just change some prescription drugs for some of our staff, and we're working with them through that, but the impact is very minimal. But otherwise, that flat renewal rate means that we didn't want to make any other big changes. As you know, we've talked about a high deductible plan. We've talked about some changes in plan design, but we think that as long as we are hearing satisfaction from our staff, no reason really to rock the boat considerably when we don't have to make other changes. So we'll continue, our recommendation is to continue with that. We are having a benefits kickoff next week for staff to have, answer questions, to really evaluate for them and their families what plan is correct for them, just to really just try to build that medical health insurance literacy a little bit more so people understand really what they're paying for, what they're getting, what they need. So we'll have Blue Blue Cross Blue Shield staff on hand. Also a couple of other of our planned information just to kind of kick us off. We always work with a very tight time window from your legislative committee meeting to open enrollment to get those changes made and in place before the end of the year. So we're just pre-messaging now to make sure everybody is aware and prepared and comfortable, ready to turn in their forms on a quick turn after you have given your stamp of approval. The dental benefit with Delta Dental was provided with a renewal of 1.5 increase. Those rates are fairly nominal. You'll see in your packet, and the rest of the items are fairly standard. And we're really just working on just education really with our staff and making sure everybody understands the benefits that are available to them, the benefit of participating in the wellness program and the retirement savings and things like that. But I'm grateful for that flat renewal.
Questions, comments? Yep, Debbie. Could you just give us a brief synopsis as to what the wellness program provides for employees?
Absolutely. We worked on expanding that over in the last few years, and I'd like to give big kudos to Kathy Stratman, our human resources specialist, who has really taken that on and taken it to heart, I would say. We work on offering a variety of programs and activities and tasks, I'll say, going to the dentist counts. But so we give out a checklist at the beginning of the year, and everyone who participates in various items gets a certain number of points. And if you get a certain number of points, then you get a cash bonus at the end of the year of $400. So we've really expanded it. We've used the term wellness very liberally and used it also for employee engagement. We've had increased participation in the years lately, definitely because I think the variety of it, but also due to the support of supervisors encouraging attendance. But I think that there are some of the highlights of the year for staff in order to just kind of get together and either do a Tai Chi class or, pizza and bingo. But also we've had lunch and learns, financial literacy classes. You get points for preventative exams and kind of those hardcore medical items, as well as just kind of the fun ones. So we try to keep it mixed up.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else? Keep around everybody.
Recommend acceptance.
Great,
All right,
awesome.
consent.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Somebody's got to do it.
Our next action item tonight is for consideration of a CMB application for Prairie Sailor LLC from Robin Folks.
Thank you. Prairie Sailor is getting ready to open this month. They are our new retail shirt, hat, bike shop on Johnson Drive, and they have decided that they would also like to offer cereal malt beverages to their patrons. So in order to do that, they have to have a CMB license through the city, and then that goes to the state. So state statutes and missions code requires that businesses that want to sell CMB beverages have to apply. We do a criminal background check, and they have gone through that process and everything has looked good. So we have approved their application and recommend acceptance of a CMB application for them. That will start after approval at your legislative meeting later this month, and then I'll be able to issue the license, and they can provide their patrons with the option to purchase a beverage while they shop. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anything?
Recommend acceptance on consent.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. All right. And our next action item tonight is for consideration of revisions to Council Policy 130, Council Liaisons to Boards and Commissions from Laura Smith.
Yes, so you may recall that, excuse me, get to the right page here. We talked back in 2019 about establishing formal council liaison positions to several of our advisory boards and commissions. Initially, that was the Parks, Recreation and Tree Commission and the Sustainability Commission. Excuse me, at that time, we adopted City Council Policy 130 that created the liaison positions, outlining the roles and the responsibilities. Really, the goal was, I think we were feeling disconnected from the work in some instances of the boards and commissions and the goals and objectives of the council and all of that. So we revised the policy in 2021 to remove a reference to the CIP committee, which had been disbanded. And we also then added appointments to the Mission Magazine editorial board and the Family Adoption Committee meeting. So I think that's been working well, and we anticipated creating 2-year appointments to those liaison positions so that council members would have an opportunity to get familiar with the boards and commissions, develop some relationships. And I think it's been very effective. I think from at least our perspective in listening to the reporting out that's happening at our council meetings, it's a great opportunity to I think better connect. So I think we've been successful in accomplishing many of the goals and objectives that we set out to. As the mayor and I were kind of looking at this policy earlier this year, I think we realized that, I don't know what we were thinking about making the renewals in December of odd numbered years. I think when we first started this, maybe we were still in transition around elections a little bit. And so we're recommending that we make a change to January of even numbered years, which doesn't allow a lot more time, but at least allows us to get new council members sworn in and for them to have a chance to at least get their toes in the water before we ask them to pick a liaison position that they might be interested in. So we also made a few other changes. You'll see there's a red line version of the policy in your packet. Really looking at the pages aren't numbered, but section 1.03, the next to the last paragraph at the top of the second page. The chair of each commission or committee will make a formal report to the entire governing body. We had originally said at least one time each year, I think, or at least 2 times each year. We've revised that to at least 1 time each year. And I think because of the reporting out that's occurring each month from the council liaisons, that's more appropriate. We also added, considering recommendations from commissions, we don't have any boards any longer, committees or other advisory task force groups. So there may be opportunities if there is an ad hoc task force group that's formed for a period of time, a liaison, the mayor may wish to look at appointing or asking for interest in liaisons to those. The one thing we did change in section 1.04 in terms of roles and responsibilities, we had originally included item number 4, which was that the liaison would participate in review of applications and interviewing candidates for the commission or committee. And we removed that simply from a time perspective, being able to coordinate schedules between candidates and the mayor. So typically what we've done for the last couple of years is the mayor, myself, and if available, the staff liaison to that board or commission will participate in that interview process. And then the council, we've shared resumes and the council still has to confirm those appointments. And then the change from liaison appointments being made in December of odd numbered years to January of even numbered years. So happy to answer any questions, but we would recommend approval. And then also at your place, you will see a handout, which gives you an opportunity to just indicate your interest in serving in one of those liaison roles. I think it's first, second, and third preference. First and second preference. So if you will fill that out, we'll provide that to our incoming council members as well, and then hopefully be positioned in January to make those appointments.
Any questions, comments?
Recommend acceptance.
Okay.
On consent.
Great. Our next action item tonight is for the resolution ratifying an emergency expenditure for a police vehicle from Chief Madden.
Good evening. And as you may recall, back in September 11th, I emailed you all about an accident that occurred on I-35 where an alleged impaired driver struck one of our police vehicles, causing significant damage that when it was originally set to be repaired and when they started tearing the car apart, they found additional damages that ultimately led to the insurance company declaring it a total loss. We then went into mode of trying to see if we were going to be able to find another police vehicle, which our vendor did a nationwide search and was only able to locate one vehicle in their network of searches, however they do their magic. And it was scheduled to be auctioned the next day. So we had to make a very quick decision because we need that frontline vehicle for patrol. So the city administrator approved that emergency expense based on the situation, and we're asking to ratify that expenditure of $38,702.30. Another important factor is we will be receiving approximately, I don't know if this is a definitive number, but $33,654.45 from the insurance company. So the net total is estimated to be $5,047.85 when everything balances out.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Yes, Debbie.
I just have a question. I've never asked. Did we get dinged by the insurance company?
I believe in this case, we're not at fault, but I believe that this case ended up being an uninsured motorist, so we just have our deductible costs.
It's not necessarily as evident as on your own personal policy, but yes, certainly our experience and losses under any of our insurance policies impact premiums at some point.
Almost any insurance, any claim is gonna put you in a different insurability bracket. So it's just the way it goes.
Any other questions? Should we have a recommendation?
Recommend acceptance on the consent agenda.
Okay. And our final action tonight is for consideration of a resolution declaring surplus property from Emily Randall.
Yes, this is routine but important due diligence as a public entity that we will declare any real or personal property that we no longer have use of before disposing of it. The list we've noted among staff without our city administrator's awareness this evening is incomplete. So we would like to propose to bring an amended list to you for the legislative meeting, but with your permission, we'd like to move this forward.
Questions, comments?
I recommend acceptance
Thank you.
on the consent agenda. Well,
Thank you.
let's see the amended list. Non-consent.
Yeah. All right, and we have no discussion items this evening. So finally, we have our department updates. Ms. Smith, are there any department updates for the Finance and Administration Committee?
Yes, thank you. I think just a couple, a reminder that we will have a work session at 6 p.m. prior to our legislative meeting on the 15th. We'll have a presentation from Chris Shires of Confluence, who did the work on the comp plan. And we'll also then be discussing what occurred in the discussion and the recommendations coming out of the Planning Commission's consideration of that. And then the comp plan will move forward for your action on your December committee and December legislative agendas. Also at your place, you should have two other handouts. The first or one of them will include November and December meeting dates, work sessions, committee and legislative meetings. If you could please just let us know whether you plan to be in attendance and whether you plan to attend in person or virtually. That will help us with planning. After our 4 council members who are up for election, sweat it out and get through their elections next Tuesday. Just a reminder that we will be swearing in new council members and returning council members at that December 20th city council meeting. And so we'll also have a reception and recognition of outgoing council members. Just like to have a head count and be able to plan for that. But we also will have some significant items, including the comprehensive plan and potentially a discussion about the Millhouse project in December. So we're just trying to make sure we've got appropriate quorum and numbers figured out there. So if you can fill that out and return that to Robin, we would appreciate that. And then also there's a handout which indicates if you will just indicate your availability for Saturdays, January and February. The mayor and I have been talking about trying to calendar and recognizing what a chore that can be with all of us. Looking at a retreat, some retreat date options for January and February once we have new council members on board. And I think, unless anybody else has anything else, I think that's all we have this evening.
Okay. It is now 7:31, very fast. And with no further discussion, that concludes the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee. Again, this video will be made public on our website at missionks.org. Thank you.